your brain health is your limiting factor, right? I mean, if you want to be successful, you want to be happy, you want to be productive, you want an optimal life, as I would say. I mean, your brain is literally what's going to get you there. So if you're having brain fog, then that's, that's a hardware problem, most likely. If you're having negative thoughts, that's a software problem with the brain. But the brain is also, it's controlling, it's sending signals to your nervous system. It's literally in charge of our mood at all times, our focus, our, cognition, clarity, everything. So I think the brain is often thought of much later in life. So, in your 60s, 70s, 80s, due to, potentially neurodegenerative disease beginning to develop or becoming more forgetful. What you do now, all disease, unless you have a freak accident, that's, an instance that this is not the case, but all like chronic disease takes 10 years to develop, like decades or years to develop. So if you work on your brain health now, that's not only going to help you in the future in terms of cognition and preventing and staving off neurodegenerative diseases, but it's going to increase your focus now, improve your cognition, improve your mood, everything that we need to be successful, happy, and just have an optimal life.
Hi, I'm Kelley Namiro. Welcome to the Balancing Chaos podcast, a lifestyle podcast where we'll talk about wellness, motherhood, and some really exciting things in between. My goal is to help you develop a lifestyle that promotes health, wholeness, and success. Through my conversations with our experts and guests, I hope to inspire you to live a beautiful, full, and joyful life as you navigate balancing the chaos. Everybody, welcome back to the Balancing Chaos podcast. In this week's episode, I am sitting down with certified brain health coach Kayla Barnes to peel back the curtain on biohacking and brain health. Kayla is an entrepreneur, certified brain health coach, biohacker with a mission to help her clients and her community achieve optimal health through science-backed and proven approaches. Her journey all started when she was 18 and began to understand that our food system was a major contributor to declining health. The combination of upgrading her nutrition and exercise began to change her life. Her energy levels increased, her cognition was improved, and this is when she became obsessed with becoming the most optimal version of herself. In 2018, she became a certified brain health coach, focusing on mindset, hormones, and in 2021, she opened her wellness clinic, Live, where they offer all things health optimization, from red light and PEMF to peptides and IV therapy, and so much more, which I can't wait for you guys to hear more about. So I can't wait to dive in. Kayla, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Super excited to chat all things with you. I feel like we could take this in so many different directions. But the first thing that I have to say, and I think I told you this like off mic right before we jumped on, is like, I love your content. I think that there is something so incredibly simple about it and so captivating about it. And I know that you are so much more than Instagram, but can you tell everyone who is trying to grow a following or trying to become the next influencer in the health and wellness space? Like, I think there's so many people out there. How did you create this niche with like the fonts that you use and like the simplicity of your feed? Like, did you know that going in when you started?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's funny because I haven't really done anything like spectacular in terms of like growth tactics. Actually, this is going to be the first year. I think you've noticed that I started posting some real content, like videos. I'm doing YouTube. I'm doing in-person podcasts now. So this is really the first year that I even have focused on building content. And actually, most of that's because of my husband. So my husband, we just got married in September. He was just, in all ways a godsend for me. But it's interesting because he actually worked with major influencers, like people with 20, 30, 50, 100 million followers. And so he did that almost like an agent, but was like representing talent in social media. And so it's funny because when we started even dating and then got engaged and got married, my husband was just shocked. He's like, you're not really capitalizing on what you could be doing. Like, this is great and this is cool, but I think I can help you do so much more. And so it's just been absolutely amazing. So to go back, I started posting on Instagram. I think it's been 4 or 5 years now. And I really only started posting because I felt like I had information. So I've been in the health industry for, well over a decade. I started studying nutrition, realizing that food was medicine, changing my diet. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17. So I really wanted to optimize my health so that I could work longer hours. Really, the initial desire was to be more productive, to create a life that I knew I wanted, and I needed a lot of energy and drive and stamina to do that. So I had all this information from, just I'm a big learner. I would say one of the most important tenets to me is continual education. In all areas, I want to be getting better in life. And one of those is information. I just love learning. So continued to just enroll in more and more programs, from integrative nutrition to integrative health practitioner to doing Dr. Amen and the brain health stuff. And I'm always learning. And so I was just wanting to put information out there in a really simple way. And that's what I started to do. The style of the content, I mean, you're looking at my home right now, very minimalistic. I would call it wabi sabi. That's the look I'm going for. I'm wearing, all black. I've had a monochromatic wardrobe, I feel like, since I came out of the womb. But I mean, as soon as I started to develop my own style, I've always wanted to keep it really simple. I mean, my hair's pulled back. It's very simple. But the thing about it is, when you wear the same color schemes, you have to add texture into it so that obviously it doesn't look like you're wearing the same thing every day. That's where my mindset was, at least. So that's where I kind of got the post format. Was it's so true and authentic to me. Yeah. I think that's what's so important to note is it's monochromatic, it has texture, and it's a simple font, and that's it. It's almost I started posting maybe around the same time, but definitely way before Andrew Huberman really exploded on the scene. But he takes really complex subjects and he distills them down and makes them simple. And so that's what I was kind of trying to do. Was I was just this could be complicated, but people might not want to know every detail. So let's just make it simple and something that people enjoy reading. And I was really fortunate. I had a couple of posts go viral where that really boosted my following. I think I got 60,000 over the course of a few days. It was such a simple post, but it was during the time we shall not speak of, as of the last 3 to 4 years. And it was just simple. I was okay, well, we're not focusing on the basics, like getting vitamin D, walking, fresh air. We were actually saying to do all the opposite things that actually promote health. And so I just made a post kind of in that vein, and it just got 300,000 shares or something. And that really took it up, and just being consistent. I mean, I posted every single day unique content that was my own. I actually go out of my way. I used to do this even more, to not follow other people in my industry. I do now more so than back then, but I didn't want to be influenced by what other people were saying. Yeah. So I just had this super long list of topics that I thought needed to be addressed, or things I was learning. I've gotten so much hands-on experience, running a longevity clinic and experimenting on myself. I'm kind of one of the most measured women in the world at this point. I've done thousands of biomarkers, full body MRIs on a yearly basis, liquid biopsies, brain scans, lung measurements, every other day, a body composition analyzer. I'm doing blood pressure. I've posted all my labs publicly. So it's been of just really natural, aligned with my life kind of transition of things I'm learning and loving. My podcast is also another great place that I get a lot of incredible information. I interviewed, 2 medical doctors yesterday. One was specializing in breast cancer, surgery, and then she went to functional. So I've just interviewed hundreds of the world's top experts, and I'm continually learning. And every time that there's something novel or new, or I read a study, I'm constantly reading studies and staying up to date on the literature. It's let's tell people this in a way that's easy and accessible to understand. And I also promote the mindset a lot too, which was interesting for me when I started, because I was okay, my husband would tell you, I love things to be cohesive. So I want everything to feel cohesive in my life. That might be a bit much, but so I wanted my Instagram to be cohesive. I was okay, so it should just be health optimization. But then I was okay, you can't achieve optimal health if you don't have the mindset to get there. So they actually go hand in hand together. So I think that's where my platform's a bit unique also, outside of the look of it. But yeah, I'm giving you inspiration to the best of my ability. It seems to resonate with people. And then combining that with the ways that you can, really upgrade your health, because it's an interesting question. Do you upgrade the body first and then that will help your mood and mindset? Or do you upgrade the mindset first, which will then, encourage you and give you the energy and drive and motivation to upgrade, your health? So that was a very long answer, but I hope it was helpful.
It was so helpful. And I think that, like, when I think about one of the reasons that I saw, well, I don't know, it's been years since I saw your content, like the first time, and started following you, but it was around mindset. And then like I saw, a couple of weeks later, like a post about gut health. And I think that the mindset piece, at least for me, and I think everyone's on a completely different journey, does come first, because that then drives the capacity to be able to change habits. But I love that you're sharing both. And I think that what I love most about it is that it's all really, really digestible. It's all stuff that people can have, these like small little takeaways where they can implement, like, oh, I can go for a walk for 20 minutes on my Monday morning, and that can set things up for success for the rest of the week, versus like trying to distill everything from the study that you read. It's like, oh, these like really small points that I can put into my life, and that make things more simple and easy. So I do love that. And I think that when I think about like what I was reading when I was researching for the show about you, and it comes back to like brain health and your interest in that. And I think that's so niche, which is really cool. That I've, on my podcast, have also had, hormone experts, or we had a gut health expert on yesterday. It's like being very interested in brain health, I think, is so unique to you. And that does really encompass both like the physical and your physical health and your hormones, because the brain plays such a role in all of that. And also mindset and anxiety and mental health and all these things. And so it really brings both worlds together. So when you think about that, what was it about brain health for you? Was it like someone in your family had dementia, or was it just natural? Like that was just something that you were interested in?
Yeah, it wasn't any physical ailments actually that run in my family. I'm very fortunate that we're not really plagued by too much, but it was actually, I did not grow up in a perfect home. I think some people online, because I'm now in this like biohacking, like expensive industry, but I didn't come from that at all. So I had a lot of patterns, because I think of the brain as the hardware, which is like how we treat it through diet and lifestyle and sleep and exercise. That's the hardware of the brain. And then we have the software of the brain, right? That's like how we think and what we believe about ourselves and how we communicate. And our brain is our most expensive organ. Obviously, it's our most expensive real estate in the body. We can't get another one. And it determines everything, how successful we are, the quality of our relationships. Every part of our life is controlled by our brain. So instead of just thinking like, oh, okay, well, let's focus on like physical body optimization, I came to the realization that we need to work on the brain first. And a big part of that for me was, how can I start changing the way that I think? And how can I have, essentially a better set of beliefs around life in general? So that was the initial motivator. And I also thought it felt like the right thing to focus on the brain first, instead of trying to, just be focused on the gym and like getting a certain physique. So I found Dr. Daniel Amen, whom is incredible. He really, in my opinion, revolutionized psychiatry, because if you have any, ailment, essentially, if you have a problem with your heart, your doctor is going to image your heart, right? You have to see what's going on, except in the world of psychiatry. And that's why Dr. Amen revolutionized it, because typically you would go in and take a standardized set of questions and leave with either a prescription or a treatment plan of some sort. But he started looking at the brain, and then he realized, there's multiple forms of Alzheimer's, there's multiple forms of ADHD. And why do you have anxiety? Why do you have depression? What's going on? Has there been an injury? Is there toxicity? Do you not have the right nutrient status? So for me, putting brain first, what you do for your brain, you do for your body, and vice versa, but it's going to improve all areas of life.
I love that. And one of the things that you shared, at the beginning, was you really got interested in this, like the whole biohacking space, was so that you could like be more productive at the end of the day, right? And like radiate productivity. And so why should some of us care more about our brain health for the sake of that productivity? Because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. There's a lot of people out there who are moms and trying to do it all and be superwoman and all of these different things. But then they're also struggling with this brain fog and kind of this burnout that I feel like we see so much more often now than even, 10, 20 years ago. And can you talk a little bit about how brain health is playing a role in some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, your brain health is your limiting factor, right? I mean, if you want to be successful, you want to be happy, you want to be productive, you want an optimal life, as I would say. I mean, your brain is literally what's going to get you there. So if you're having brain fog, then that's, that's a hardware problem, most likely. If you're having negative thoughts, that's a software problem with the brain. But the brain is also, it's controlling, it's sending signals to your nervous system. It's literally in charge of our mood at all times, our focus, our, cognition, clarity, everything. So I think the brain is often thought of much later in life. So, in your 60s, 70s, 80s, due to, potentially neurodegenerative disease beginning to develop or becoming more forgetful. What you do now, all disease, unless it's you have a freak accident, that's, an instance that this is not the case, but all like chronic disease takes 10 years to develop, like decades or years to develop. So if you work on your brain health now, that's not only going to help you in the future in terms of cognition and preventing and staving off neurodegenerative diseases, but it's going to increase your focus now, improve your cognition, improve your mood, everything that we need to be successful, happy, and just have an optimal life.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading something the other day that was saying, like, if you have something like that, whether it's brain fog or burnout or digestive issues, those are all like signs that there's a bigger issue on the horizon, that there's more of a bigger diagnosis of chronic disease, whether it's heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, something like that you can get diagnosed with on the horizon. The symptoms are just the first sign of that impending chronic disease building up over those decades of time, which I think is really, really fascinating. And so what I'm curious about now, because you mentioned like doing the course, and I know you said like you've shared your labs with other people, like I do labs for my clients, but just based on like your biohacking and kind of becoming more and more optimal, what are the labs that you're looking at? Are you looking at a brain scan regularly? What are the things you're looking at to understand that you're, you can also assess like how you feel intuitively, but like when you think about numbers to assess whether or not you're optimal?
Yeah, great question. I want to preface this with the fact that I do co-own a clinic. This is my professional and personal life. So by no means do you need to do all these labs that I'm going to mention in order to be healthy or be optimal. And then I'll kind of identify at the end which labs I think are the most important. I do many labs. So I have a very kind of strict, so I'm doing labs every quarter. And they are several different things. Some of them I do just twice a year. So every quarter I'm looking at like a comprehensive blood panel. So I'm looking at, of course, like a metabolic panel, and, I'm looking at a lipid panel, an advanced lipid panel though. So we have something called an advanced cardiac lab. So it's not just looking at LDL and HDL and triglycerides. It's also looking at really, in-depth markers to understand the level of inflammation in the arteries, the size and the shape of the particles. It's looking at TMAO. It's looking at ApoB. It's a super comprehensive cardiac test. And I do that because we know that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer. So I really want to make sure that I'm staying ahead of that. With that being said, with all the tests that I'm going to talk about, there are standard lab ranges, and then there's what I would call optimal lab ranges. Standard lab ranges are what's going to be on the piece of paper that you receive if you do your labs at like a LabCorp request or your doctor's office. And they're huge. They're massive. They can be, hundreds of points difference at some points. And so I'm looking at a very specific range for myself that my medical team at my clinic has actually developed. So I'll use vitamin D as an example. Vitamin D is incredibly important. It functions as a hormone. The range, I think, is 30 to 100. That's a massive range, right? I always want to keep my vitamin D between 65 and 85 at least. Like, honestly, I'm always between 70 and 85. That's where I like to keep it. But that's a very different range, because if your vitamin D is 30, you have a ton of work to do. That is extremely low, in my opinion. And, on my team, we have medical doctors and functional medicine practitioners. So we're looking at these optimal ranges. Vitamin D is another big one. My hormones, so estrogen, progesterone. I'm also looking at lab markers for fertility like AMH. I did a whole fertility workup recently, and I did an ovarian ultrasound. I did AMH levels, a super comprehensive fertility lab. I just did that recently, but doing blood work of some sort, even if you do a baseline panel, right? Like looking at your kidney, your liver function, your glucose, your insulin. I mean, only 6% of Americans are metabolically healthy at this point, which is absolutely astounding. And the problem is you, according to a Western medicine doctor, you don't have diabetes until you do, right? So it's a very specific number. So if your glucose is, 99, or you're trending in the wrong direction, that's your opportunity to reel things back, change your diet, change your lifestyle before you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So I'm looking at these ranges all the time so I can make any adjustments if I need to. Okay, so that's like a basic blood lab. Then I do what is called a total tox burden. So we are exposed to an unprecedented level of toxins these days. So it could be in the form of heavy metals like lead, mercury, and it might sound crazy, but there was just a huge article about how tampons are containing arsenic and heavy metals. So it's actually not crazy at all. There are so many different ways that you can get these heavy metals. There's a direct relationship or correlation between heavy metals and neurodegenerative diseases. So I'm looking at if I'm being exposed to heavy metals. I also look at environmental toxins, things like BPA, PFAs, glyphosate. I live an incredibly clean life. I mean, I haven't eaten a piece of inorganic food in the last decade. I, use all the right oils. I only eat whole food ingredients, but I still, when I get my lab reports, this total toxic burden, it's by a company called Vibrant Wellness. And it combines several tests into one. So you're looking at the heavy metals, you're looking at molds, which is also incredibly, and molds mycotoxins, which is also incredibly pervasive. A lot of people that have mold exposure feel very ill. So seeing if I have any of that, that can be in your environment. It can be hidden in a wall. It can be in your bathroom. It can be in your food. So looking at this comprehensive set of lab markers with the total tox burden, and living this life where, I have like 10 air doctors in my home. It's like 10 times too many that I even need. Probably like 1 to 2 would be sufficient, but I have them all over. I have filtered drinking water, shower water, all the waters. And still, I had a little bit of glyphosate in the medium range, which, for perspective, a lot of people that come in will have like 10 to 15 toxins in the high range, which is very problematic, right? But I had a couple even in the medium range. So it's literally saying that it's probably airborne or it's in the water. It's almost like unavoidable because I'm doing everything I can. So total tox burden is a great one. Do you ever use that one?
I haven't used that. I think that that's a great suggestion for people. I love that you've kind of gone through the gamut too of metabolic health, fertility, and breaking them out for people. And it's funny, I was just having this conversation. I was on somebody else's show. And I think that it's really interesting to hear the difference in between what labs you might do. And I love that you also said that you're doing them every quarter, because I think that there's so many people that I've talked to that are like, oh, I haven't done my labs in 5 years. And it's like, how do you know what you need to adjust, what you need to what you need to change in your lifestyle if you want to live forever? And one of the things I was curious about when you were just talking through all of that, and there's probably some more labs that I'll let you get through that you do, but
yes, there are.
If you've ever done the telomeres and looked at because based on all of the things that you're doing, it's like you're not eating any seed oils, you're eating organic food. It's like, I would expect that your biological age would probably be 10 years younger or 20 years younger. My husband was 12 years younger because he's very into biohacking, cold plunge sauna, all organic, no seed oils, all the things. And he's actually gotten that number to come down. So I'm very curious about that as well.
I love that. Yeah. So I've definitely done biological age testing. I'm friends with the owners of True Diagnostics. They actually I have one sitting on my counter. They just rolled out. So they have the biological age test, and then they just rolled out this amazing, it's like the biological age of each organ, which is really, really incredible. Wow. Yeah. And the last time I checked my biological age, it was 12 years younger, which is amazing. And I love that as a metric. It's super exciting. People are very excited about it. And that, I think, gives people motivation as well. So that's definitely a test I love. I also love doing gut testing. I think it's one of the most important tests you could ever do, because our gut, it houses our immune system. If our immune system goes down, I mean, it's going to allow so many chronic diseases potentially to develop, like a lot of autoimmune conditions and chronic diseases. When your immune system can't work the right way, if it's dysregulated, that's a huge issue. Your gut also communicates directly with your brain. Right. So there's actually neurons in your gut. So the gut is so overlooked, and it's also extremely complicated, right? So there is no really one size fits all approach for people with gut health. I always recommend people get a comprehensive gut test and work with a practitioner to understand it, because you could have, candida overgrowth, you could have parasites, you could have, different pathogens or viruses in your gut. And there's a lot of correlation that these viruses and pathogens can actually lead to chronic diseases like autoimmune and a variety of different chronic diseases. But optimizing the gut is so incredibly important, because also if your gut becomes permeable, which, people that have high stress, eating the wrong foods, maybe a lot of gluten, and the gut becomes permeable, then you're actually having essentially like food proteins leaking out of the gut, causing inflammation throughout the body. So gut health testing is incredibly important. And we have more gut cells in our body than human cells. So the way you interpret it can be complicated. And that's why I also don't love like one size fits all probiotics, because everyone can be different. And I might need something, a specific strain or 3 strains that you don't need. So it's hard to say that, one size is going to fit everybody with their gut health. And as like a story example, 2 years ago, I had a parasite. And I mean, I probably picked it up from maybe just eating at a restaurant that the food wasn't like clean. Who knows how I got it? Travel, something. But it happens, and it's not uncommon. I want people to understand that. I think parasites and these like viruses within the gut are going to become a really important topic in the next few years, if they're not already. But I identified it because I have regular testing. So I saw the labs come back. I obviously got rid of the parasite, but it was increasing a marker called calprotectin, and it was leading to inflammation. So if I had continued to let that fester and not address it, it could have led to systemic inflammation. And so I think investing, although they are expensive, in lab testing is, important if you want to achieve optimal health, because the body is just so complicated and you can't fix what you don't know. And like I said, it's years that these types of diseases develop. So if you can catch it early, that's absolutely amazing. So that's a gut test. I also do like a full body MRI once a year. I'm going to get a Pernuvo scan next Tuesday. And that's just, again, it's a diagnostic tool. Nothing is perfect, but it not only gives me a baseline, so it understands like my brain volume and function now, but it also is going to catch something, hopefully, if something were to go awry, because it's looking for things like, cysts and masses and stuff like that. So they have a lot of incredible stories actually of catching stuff for people well before it became an actual problem. So I love doing that.
Really, like I did one myself too, like right before I got pregnant, and they can catch it when it's still so small. So like where like a different type of MRI can't. Is that right?
I think other MRIs would be able to. Also, sometimes in radiology, your MRI is just looking for one specific thing. Like it's like maybe a breast MRI or whatever. It's a full body. So it's a preventative scan, and it's made for diagnostics. So that's part of, my regular protocol. I also do liquid biopsy. So that's actually a blood test, but it can pick up cell-free DNA from cancer cells. So again, it's just prevention. And also, I'll say this again, these are not all required whatsoever. You can be super healthy and you can know a pretty good idea of what's going on with, fairly comprehensive lab panel. I would definitely get it more of an advanced cardiac panel panel, advanced hormone panel, but that's like one lab per year and then a gut test. You do not need to do all of this stuff. I do it because I'm obsessed with it and love it and own a clinic that does all this stuff. So it's really easy for me. I also test my NAD levels. Let me think. Yeah, liquid biopsies. I'm only going to do this like every other year, I think, but a clearly CT soft plaque analysis. So the gold standard, I guess, in Western medicine is a cardiac score. So if there's a calcium score, so if there's calcium actually building up in your arteries, that's obviously going to lead to an issue down the road. But this clearly soft plaque analysis actually looks inside of your arteries, and it can tell if you have any soft plaque accumulation, which you can then do something about that before it becomes calcified. So many like fun, incredible tests. Also, I do a lot of wearables. So I'm doing Oura Ring, and I'm looking at my data from my sleep every night. I do body composition scanning like once a week. And then I also do I measure my lung health. I measure my grip strength. I measure a lot of these kind of metrics that can be done at home, super simple, and they do correlate with longer lives and longevity.
I really hope that you are enjoying this episode. I want to take a quick pause and invite you to come deeper with us if you're ready to explore the root cause connection to the symptoms that you're feeling. Whether you're bloated, exhausted, maybe you have brain fog, you can't lose weight. The WBK Health and Hormones course and our WBK membership and app are here to help you feel like you are empowered to take charge of your health and understand the real why behind you feeling how you do. And we give you the methods and protocols to heal with sustainable solutions. Right now, through Labor Day, get 10% off our annual membership on the WBK app with the code Balancing Chaos, all one word, BALANCINGCHAOS, and 20% off the Wellness by Kelley Health and Hormones course, and an emailed lab review with the code Balancing Chaos 20. That's BALANCINGCHAOS 20. These protocols in the course have meal suggestions, journal prompts, and supplement guides to help you heal whatever area of hormonal balance you're struggling with. With our membership, you'll receive a library of content and new workouts, recipes, and meditations every single week to keep you consistent and to allow your body to come back to its most vital state of being. Okay, now back to the episode.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to get into longevity. I want to go back really quickly to what you were saying about gut health and like the gut health testing, because I am in complete agreement in terms of how absolutely necessary I think it is for people to be doing. And I so resonated with what you were saying about I think there's so many people that are peddling just to take this probiotic. And it's no, that could actually be doing more harm than it could be doing good, depending on what your specific microbiome looks like, depending on if you're dealing with dysbiosis or not. And so I'm guessing you guys do the gut health testing at your clinic. Is that right?
We do, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Two is when we think about that gut brain axis that you were mentioning and how the gut communicates with the brain. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? Because I think that a lot of people are not informed enough about that and about the way that our diets, what we're eating, what we're inputting has a direct correlation with things like anxiety, depression, our mood, how we're feeling mentally. And so can you talk a little bit, because it's not just diet, right? I mean, our diet absolutely affects our microbiome, but also so does stress. And so just kind of give us a little bit more detail on that, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, and this is kind of bold, but if you eat junk, you're going to feel like junk. So the food and the inputs that your inputs are going to determine so much of life. And food is so much more than just calories, right? It's actually information for our cells. And if you're eating highly inflammatory processed foods, when it enters the gut and causes inflammation in the gut, then the gut is going to basically transmit that up to the brain. They're communicating together. And so if the gut is a really poor environment, then it's going to be sending distress signals up to your brain, right? If you have inflammation and leaky gut and viruses and parasites or bacteria overgrowth in your gut, it's going to be communicating that to the brain because it has to take care of itself, right? But of course, that's going to impact your mood. And if you conversely are eating an anti-inflammatory diet, brain healthy food. So, I mean, the brain is mostly made of fat and water. So things like healthy fats and avocados, olive oil is amazing for the brain, salmon, wild caught salmon, because the brain loves those omega 3s, anti-inflammatory. So if you eat, you will see literally within days or weeks, you can see an improvement in your mood. And I don't want to say, I mean, depression is very real and, diet will not change everything, but I always say at least give yourself a fighting chance. So try to change your diet. These processed foods are made to be addicting. They're very nutrient poor. And the brain is actually the most energy consumptive organ of the body. So it's only about 2 to 3 pounds, but it consumes about 30% of our calories every day. So if you think about what you eat on a day-to-day basis, you have to think, okay, is that going to put me in a better mood or a worse mood? Is it going to make my thinking more clear or less clear? And I think that's so important to change the way we think about food, because it's literally like what all of our cells are made up, which then makes up our organs. So incredibly important. But yeah, if you have a really inflamed gut, bad bacteria, overgrowth, lots of dysbiosis, that's going to be sending those signals right up to the brain. And of course, you're going to have brain fog. Of course, your mood is going to be reduced. So what you eat is incredibly important. In general, how you treat the brain is what you put in is what you're going to get out for the most part. Of course, there's outlier situations, but in general, if you're getting high quality sleep, just that, right? So one night of poor sleep can increase your blood pressure, obviously increase fatigue, reduce motivation, but sleep is when our brain essentially recovers. It's definitely not doing nothing. It's very active still during the night, but it's cleaning it up. I think of it as like, throwing out the trash, repainting the lines, like cleaning everything up while we're sleeping, storing memories. And so if you're not getting really high quality sleep, like 2 hours at least of deep and REM sleep, then your brain's not able to recover and clean itself out the way it's supposed to at night. So all of these lifestyle factors, we talk about like advanced testing and longevity and NADIVs, but by far the thing that moves the needle the most is the things that we do every day. So every day we're eating, every day we're breathing, every day we're sleeping, and every day we should be moving our body. I mean, exercise has incredible benefits for the brain. You're improving blood flow to the brain. The brain loves strong blood flow. And so when you move your body, improve blood flow, it's incredible for it. And it boosts dopamine, which is obviously the motivation molecule. It's a neurotransmitter. And then you have serotonin that's going to be increased. Serotonin is also mostly housed in the gut. So it's like if your gut is a disaster, it's going to be negatively impacting your serotonin in the gut, and that will be then communicated to the brain. So your gut, super important, and what you put in it is very important.
I love that you brought up this idea of like the things, because when we think about like the whole biohacking and like being able to go do the NIDIVs and the, PEMF mats and the red light therapy and all these things, like those are great add-ons. And I want to talk about like what your regimen looks like, but then also like the inputs that we are doing every single day. I was talking about this in relation to toxins yesterday when I was on my Instagram talking about my makeup and fragrance and all of these different things. Like what we're inputting every single day is going to move the needle the most and make the biggest difference. And when we think about it, like the reason that you're doing this, the reason that I think I'm doing this, the reason that so many people are doing these things to take care of their health is for the long term, because we want to live as long and as not just long, but like feel as good as we can for as long as we can. Longevity is so important to so many of us, whether we have children or not. And so can you talk a little bit about the things that you're doing every single day? Like, I would love to know, what does your diet look like? What does your exercise look like? Do you meditate? What are those things look like? And then from there, talk to us about what are the add-ons? What are you doing at your wellness clinic, on a weekly, monthly, or even if it is a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a long list. So again, you most certainly do not need to do all these things. And I'll try to say something I do and then what you can do, like the free version of it. Because I don't want, the longevity industry can feel so like exclusive and unattainable, and it can be, but it also, you can make massive progress just by focusing on the basics. You can be in better health in like, 90% of people if you really master these basics. So I love a great morning routine. So my morning routine sets my day. I do a lot in the morning. I get up. I actually, right behind me, that's a PEMF mat. It's a clinical grade device. They're on both chairs. So I get up and, well, first I wake up, I do my oral care routine. So I do like some oil pulling with an ozone oil. I brush my teeth, and then I do some tongue scraping. And then I come out here and I read. I mean, I'm actually a Christian. I read the Bible. I pray. That could be, meditation. It could be breath work. It could be really anything. And I sit on the PEMF mat and I do that until the sun starts to come out. So I wake up naturally, usually around 5 a.m. because I go to bed at 8:30. So the sun's not out quite yet, but after I do that for about 30 minutes, the sun's starting to peek out. So I do my PEMF, my reading, and then I go outside and I take a walk. So between 10 and 30 minutes, and that's to get the morning sunlight into the eyes. So we have something called circadian rhythms, and that's our sleep-wake cycle. They're completely dysregulated these days because we're watching TV and being exposed to blue light and cell phones into these late hours of the night. Whereas our ancestors, they were rising with the sun and, winding down and going to bed with the sun. We're not doing that anymore. So getting the morning light, it signals to your brain, hey, it's time to wake up. It's morning, and it anchors your circadian rhythm. So not only is it going to help give you some energy and improve focus and wake up, it's going to tell your body, okay, body, start the clock because we're waking up now. And then later you're going to be able to fall asleep easier. So do my walk, get my sun in the eyes. I come in and I do a workout of some sort. It really varies. I'm mostly working out at home now on our deck right behind me, but I love doing strength training. I mean, adding on muscle and maintaining as much muscle as you can in a healthy way is so incredibly important for men and women. But I think it's a little bit not talked about enough with women because we don't want to, quote unquote, be bulky. Yeah, but that will not happen. We do not have the hormones. We would have to actually, supplement in a very serious way with exogenous hormones, or be just taking it to the 10th degree, right? So I do lots of strength training. I don't think I look bulky at all, but I maintain the physique that I want to. So do a strength training session. I really love getting 10,000 steps in the day. So I basically do my morning walk. I do an evening walk with my husband for about 45 minutes. And then throughout the day, I have a walking treadmill. Okay, so I come in, do my workout. And then in the first half of my cycle, I only do cold plunging the first half of my cycle because I want to allow my progesterone to rise naturally in the second half. But right behind me, I have a cold plunge. So I do that. And it's an amazing way. I mean, at this point, I feel great. I've done sunlight, cold plunge, workout, the whole 9 yards. I also do red light therapy 3 times a week for about 15 minutes. So depending on the day, sometimes I do red light therapy, sometimes I don't. And then I take a shower and I start working throughout my day. I actually have a device called a NanoVi at my desk. So my office is very optimized, for health and productivity. So I don't have any junk light. We have a lot of skylights in our home. So it's all natural light, no fluorescence or LED lights of any kind. And I have a walking desk. I have a huge window so I can get natural air and sunshine. And I, stand part of the time. The other part of the time, I'm sitting in this chiropractic type chair and do my NanoVi throughout the day. Also, once a week, I'm doing the body composition stuff. And then I check all my data, usually after all of my morning training, like blood pressure and my lung health and grip strength, all that stuff. And work throughout the day. I take all my Zoom meetings as phone calls, and I walk throughout. I live in the Hollywood Hills, so it's zone 2 because it's very uphill. Yeah. And take all my phone calls walking. So, I get minimum 10,000 steps a day, sometimes 15, 20,000 steps a day. And then evening, I eat twice a day. I eat around 10 o'clock and then I eat around 5. When my husband gets home, I make all of our meals. I live in LA, but there's only 2 restaurants. One of them's it's not even a restaurant, it's a grocery store. So I go to Erewhon and I go to a restaurant called Matu because it's grass-fed, grass-finished, no seed oils, all that stuff. But outside of that, I make all of our meals. I think that's a really good way to upgrade your health because if you're eating out at restaurants, you don't know what they're putting in them. And nearly all restaurants are using not high quality ingredients, conventional produce loaded with glyphosate. They're using the wrong sort of oils. So there's like anti-inflammatory oils like omega-3s, like olive oil. And then there's pro-inflammatory oils like these seed oils like canola, soybean oil. Soybean oil has actually been shown to like have genetic changes in the brain. And so make all of our meals at home. And then my husband gets home. We do a sauna session together. So we do about 5 sauna sessions a week, about 24 minutes long. And then we go on our walk, as I mentioned, and then we have like a wind down routine. So just, chatting, spending time together. A lot of times we'll catch up on the day in the PEMF chairs again. And then we go to bed at 8:30. So it's a lot.
I love it, but it's so thoughtful, and like all the way down to the fact that it's intentional around like the cold plunging, like the first half of your cycle, but then allowing the progesterone to rise. Are you also cycling like things like your workouts? And can you talk a little bit about why this is important for women who are trying to optimize their hormones? Because that's really what I do, is I teach women around hormones and health. And I think that so many of us are so unaware of the fact that our hormones make these major fluctuations throughout a 28-day cycle. We live in a very like hyper masculinized society where it's like men run on a 24-hour cycle. They run on testosterone, and we run on this 28-day cycle. That's very delicate. We may have a lot more energy at the middle of the month than we do, let's say, 3 to 7 days before our cycle is about to start. And so why are those types of things, again, like cycling your workouts or the cold plunge or whatever, important for optimizing both hormones and like productivity when you're a woman?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. So we do have this monthly cycle, right? We have these phases where, give or take, we can have some expectation around what's going to happen then, right? Like we know during ovulation, you're going to be like your strongest, you can go the hardest. And so I do for the most part organize my workouts around that. I won't say, I have because I think my hormones are so regulated, I'm not dealing with a lot of like fatigue. I don't have any PMS symptoms. I've never had cramps. So I'm not dealing with that type of thing. But if you are, I mean, first of all, again, these are some symptoms, right? To look at your lifestyle, how you're eating and how you're moving, and, even sunshine and nature and all those things that we know can help balance your hormones, while getting rid of, like you said, I mean, I haven't used traditional fragrances in like a decade. I look up all my products on the EWG. So, all natural body lotion and skincare and shampoo. My shampoo's beef tallow and my conditioner's like a methylene blue shampoo bar. It's like everything, because those are endocrine disruptors, and women are expected to leave the house with about 200 known toxins every day. And that's not counting the cleaning products that we come into contact with. So, it's not a surprise to me, with all the toxins mixed with the stress, mixed with the lifestyle that we're living right now, that autoimmune conditions are skyrocketing, and women have far more, about 4-fold autoimmune conditions than men. Fertility is in a massive decline. That's for both men and women. But we have these environments that we were not made to live in. So we have to do everything. And it's so annoying and it's so ridiculous that you have to be like a full-time researcher to figure out what to buy and what to use. And is the pan right? I mean, my couch over there, it's this low toxin couch because they have toxin in couches. For what? It's ridiculous. My mattress, certified organic, GOTS certified mattress, but it's so ridiculous that there has to be toxins in everything. This is like organic clothing that I'm wearing. I'm obviously, I've been in this industry for a long time and I've had a lot of time to learn, but I think, being a woman, first step is just to learn your cycle, right? I feel like a lot of people don't even necessarily know what phase they're in or what phases there are. And so just like I have the Aura Ring and I sync it with an app called Natural Cycles. I don't know if you like that one, but I love it. It's right now I'm using it for pregnancy prevention, but in about a month or two, we're going to start trying for a family. I'll switch it, but it's a great app just to learn. It'll tell you you're in the follicular phase, you're in your luteal phase, and it has a lot of education built in. And I think there's other apps too, but step one, just learn where you're at. And then step two, I would say, I made a post a couple of months ago about like different foods you can have during your cycle. But don't even think about that if you're not eating like a whole food diet. And when I say whole food diet, I mean single ingredient foods, no processed foods and ultra processed foods. Things like packaged goods, even bars, I don't eat. I'm not a fan of. You don't want something that is essentially like man-made, because so much of our food supply these days is literally not food. It is like a food-like substance. There's no nutritional value to it. You're not getting a massive benefit, and it's actually harming your health. And it's so sad. But don't even worry about, having more red meat during your, bleed phase or your menstrual cycle. Yeah, that can be great if you want to do that. But I would say first, just make sure you're eating a whole food diet, because that's going to impact your hormones very positively.
I love that you're like, you have this mindset and approach to this, because like it could be really easy for somebody who owns a clinic like you do and who's like fully integrated into this lifestyle. Like, okay, just do all this stuff. But then it's like, that's not approachable or attainable for people. It's like, okay, where can I start? And that goes back to what we were saying about your content at the very beginning. It's like, it's all very digestible, and it's always like one step at a time. Like, learn the phases of your cycle if you don't know what those are yet, because there are a lot of women who it's like, I think the last time we were educated about this stuff was like 6th grade health. And it's like, no one has talked about it since then. And so it's like, can we get to that place where we know more and we're educated more, and where you know, like, oh, maybe like, the week before my cycle, I am going to feel a little bit more tired because that's when my hormones are starting to decline. And maybe in the first, 10 days, like my energy might start to go up, and like I'm starting to become aware of those things. And then I can start to integrate the habits and the things that I'm learning as I go along, versus like it has to be all of these different things. And so now for the people who are a little bit more advanced, I should say, on like this health and wellness journey, like me, before I got pregnant, I was doing NADIVs and like ozone therapy and like all of the fun things. And I truly cannot wait next month to like start to get to that stuff, because pregnancy takes you away from all of it. But what are the things that you're doing, whether it's at the clinic or, outside of that, that are a little bit more, advanced, and that are things that people can do once they've got the basics down?
Yeah. One other test that I want to mention real quick, because this could kind of lead into that I do, it's called a Nutri-Eval. And so instead of just, blindly guessing what supplements I think that I need, I do, it's a blood draw with the urine sample, and it gives me essentially a printout of my blood and urine levels of these vitamins, and nutrients. I also, when I develop what I'm going to eat in my diet, I plug it into an app called Chronometer, and I'm looking at the macros, which is like the fat, protein, carbs, but I'm also looking at the micronutrient content. And so that's like making sure I'm getting vitamins and minerals from my food. And at the bottom, it'll literally give you like a chart of, okay, are you getting enough folate or B12 or all these different nutrients from your food? So I start there. I try to get mostly, food-based nutrition. And then whatever else I need on top of that, I supplement. So that's changing on a quarterly basis, because it's not always the same. Sometimes I'm more deficient in something than another time. So that's a really great test as well. And so everything is bio-individual. Outside of that, a few things that we have here at the house, and we also have these things at the clinic, a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So hyperbaric, I actually first learned about it from Dr. Amen. It's incredible for the brain. So it significantly improves blood flow to the brain, and that can help improve cognition. Anyone that's had like a TBI or a concussion of any sort, that they can really benefit from it. But there's also studies coming out of Israel that state that it can lengthen telomeres. So, the telomeres are the little end caps on your DNA. As you age, they shrink. And then eventually it's leaving your DNA exposed and more susceptible to damage. So hyperbaric has been shown to basically, reduce biological age. So I do 40 sessions once a year, and that's on a 5-day cadence. So 5 days and then 2 days off, and then 5 again for the 40 sessions. I do that about once a year. And then I do like maintenance doses of 2 to 3 sessions per week, just depending on how much time I have. It is a 1-hour commitment inside of a chamber, but that's amazing. And I have one at home, and then we have a bigger chamber at the clinic. I love doing ozone sauna. So you mentioned ozone. Ozone is antiviral, antibacterial, antiparasitic. It's really incredible. The ozone sauna is significantly better at detoxing than even like the infrared sauna that I have out there. So the sauna I have at home is infrared traditional combo. So you can switch them on and off. I absolutely love it. It's by a brand called Heavenly Heat, and they're like the lowest tox saunas on the market. So you don't want to be in a sauna that has these wood glues that are off gassing, and then, you're getting this exposure while you're in the sauna doing something to detox those exact things. So you want to look into your sauna stuff too, because that's also important. It also has the lowest EMFs on the market. It's not like filled with like a TV and a sound system like some of them are, but that's great because I don't want to be baking in EMFs while I am getting a sauna session. I also have a Faraday cage around my bed. So it literally blocks out all of the EMFs so that my Wi-Fi goes off at night. I have organic sheets, organic bed, the whole 9 yards. So ozone sauna is amazing. It's something called a Hocket. And that's a 30-minute session, but it releases CO2. It opens up your pores. And then the ozone can actually seep in transdermally. It also has PEMF, or pulsed electromagnetic field therapy inside, infrared therapy. It has microcurrents that come up through the feet that can actually be targeted for different ailments and different diseases. So I love doing ozone sauna. We also have IV ozone. So we see a lot of good results with people with like cardiac inflammation, but it's also amazing for detoxification. So I do those several times at least a quarter. And we also have EBOO now, which is basically a very high dose IV ozone. It looks kind of like a dialysis machine. And that again is going to help with like systemic inflammation, detoxing. People with like mold exposure, Lyme exposure, they have, really great benefit from therapies like that. I, of course, do NAD. I've done like every NAD possible on the market, everything from the powders to the supplements to the IM injections to the IV. I do a loading dose once a year at this point, and that's about 5 IVs within a 10-day period. And then when I was in Ohio at the clinic all the time, I was doing 1 NAD IV every month. Now I'm doing an NAD supplement, but I'm still keeping tabs on my NAD levels. It's like a powder, and it seems to be getting into the cells really well, which I like. And then I'll go back and do my loading dose, sometime later this year. So NAD is amazing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for people who don't know, what does NAD do?
So NAD is like an essential coenzyme to almost all biological processes. And I know that sounds, like a lot, but it's also extremely important in the brain. So it can help with reducing brain fog, improving cognition, but it's a coenzyme that as we age, essentially aging is a decrease in all the good things and an increase in all the bad things. So increase in inflammation, decrease in hormones, decrease in NAD, decrease in nutrient sensing. So in order to either age backwards or maintain our current age, we need to be kind of putting back the things that we're missing. So yeah, NAD is incredible. It's really being touted as like the longevity molecule right now, but I think it's great. And I've tested my NAD levels. And what I can say is with all the stuff that I've done, including NAD IVs, NAD injectables, all the stuff, my levels when I did my first NAD test were at like the bottom of the optimal range, which was still fine. But if that's where my levels are, I really can only imagine where most people's NAD levels are. So NAD is amazing. I do sometimes, nutritional IVs that are again custom made based on my Nutri-Eval results. Something interesting that my husband and I are getting ready to do is we're banking our stem cells. So we're going to have a little bit of fat, extracted, and then we'll get the stem cells from that. They'll then be taken to the lab and cultured and replicated. And so moving forward, I'm actually going to be able to get a vial of my stem cells. It's the American Cell Bank. I can send you the info, but I'll be getting a vial of my stem cells. I have a nurse that comes over to my house here in LA, and I'll actually be using my own stem cells for longevity, anti-aging, and that's a lot of fun.
She said it was like the coolest thing. So I feel like that's like, there's so many things that you can do, but I think that it takes, like you said, like all this research and knowledge, like, and having to like kind of be your own advocate all the time to understand like what are the options for long.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like, some things might be more important for your specific case, right? If you had a brain injury, then I would, and you are doing all the basics and you're have that under control, then maybe just hyperbaric would be best for you. Let's say you had mold exposure or Lyme, or you have a high toxic burden, then ozone sauna and ozone therapy might be the best. I also have an at-home ozone device that I can make ozone water. You can do rectal insufflation. You can do all of these things. You can fill up a syringe. You could do an IV at home if you have a nurse that can come over and do it. So it's really, and PEMF, like grounding, you can just, PEMF, I just think of it as grounding on steroids, right? Like you can get all the benefits from making contact with the earth. It costs $0 and it just is a little bit of time, and it's going to help reduce anxiety, reduce stress. We know that 80 to 90% of doctor visits are related to stress.
Yeah.
So And with all this stuff that I'm saying, I want everyone to know this stuff doesn't stress me out. It's all built into my life. It's really simple. I feel good. But if it is causing you stress, like your health and wellness, just take it really small. Do something that is manageable, and then just stack that habit. Like meditate for 2 minutes. Don't be a brand new meditator and say, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. And by the way, meditators versus non-meditators, the meditator's brain had more gray matter, and they literally had better functioning brains in studies. So meditating is great for the brain. It's great for your attitude. It's great for your focus, relaxation, stress, the whole 9 yards. So super important, but I would say it's important to not think that you're going to change everything in a single day. It's make reasonable, sustainable changes. So maybe, 1 week at the grocery store, you buy half as much processed foods, and you buy half of whole fruits and vegetables, and you don't have to do everything at once, because the studies also show that doesn't work. Yes. So make like small, manageable changes. Walk outside, once a day. And that's your thing that you did this week, and just stack it on top of it. I always say one win leads to many wins. So once you're eating a little bit better, you're walking or moving your body, you're going to start to get more energy. You're going to start to feel better. Maybe you're doing a cold shower in the morning. Like that's your one win for the day. But after you get out of a cold shower, you're going to be motivated. I mean, not only do the studies show it increases dopamine, which is your motivation molecule, but you also just did something really hard that you can be proud of.
100%. I think that like what you said in there about like, if it is stressful to you and it's overwhelming to you and it's something that is causing you anxiety and it feels really rigid, that's no longer wellness. And like it is, all of these things are for you, specifically Kayla, because this is your life and you've built your life around this, and this is your business and this is your passion and what you're sharing with the world. But for somebody who is 100 steps behind and that feels super overwhelming for it, it's not wellness if you're trying to pack all this on at once and it feels super stressful for you. So taking it as it comes is such a valuable piece of advice. I think that our listeners can take away at the end of this to say like, okay, what's the number one priority here in terms of me making a shift that's changed my life? And maybe somebody who's a little bit more advanced may want to go do that NAD and like do a loading dose and like do all of the, the follow up with that. But maybe somebody who has like no idea about any of it is like, I'm just going to start by what you said, like taking half of my processed foods out. And that's going to be the starting point. And I think that there's so many different places for people to start depending on where you are. And that if there's one takeaway from the end of this and all of the options that Kayla's given today, it's like, please take that away. It's like the self-awareness of knowing where you're at so that you can do the right thing for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're just starting, I would recommend just go to bed earlier tonight, because if you go to bed earlier and just start gradually, going to bed earlier, it can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, but sleep is literally the foundation of greatness, because you're going to have more energy. You're going to have less even cravings. So lack of sleep increases the hunger hormone ghrelin. So you're more hungry. So you're snacking and you're less motivated when you don't have sleep, and your blood pressure is higher and your anxiety is up. It's like, get high quality sleep tonight and go to bed earlier. It is not worth it. I don't quote me on this because this isn't my industry, but I've heard that the CEO of Netflix said that their biggest competitor was sleep.
Oh my God, that's insane. But like, true, like it impacts everything. And I think I heard you talking about this on another podcast, like around this idea that when we think about like the inputs, like sleep, stress, and our food, like those are the biggest things that matter. And sleep matters so much because it does control it, not just your energy for the next day, but your hunger and fullness, like you just said, like it controls your anxiety levels. There's so many aspects of it. So I think that like that's another great thing that we can all take away. But it's also something that like nobody wants to do. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I do it and I love it.
I love sleep. If with 2 kids, another one on the way, like I will take as much as I can get, but it's like nobody wants to put the screen down at the end of the day because that feels like the hardest thing to do. But I promise once you break the habit, it's the best.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my phone is like emergencies only pretty much, like, during my wind down period. And outside of that, I also don't look at it the first thing when I wake up either, because I don't want to like flood my brain with like issues or fires or dopamine from the phone, like whatever it may be. So yeah,
Have you
I
always
think
been like that? Or is that something that's changed over time for you?
I mean, I definitely, most of the healthy habits like exercise, nutrition, sleep, all that stuff has been prioritized for a long time. But since I've gotten married, the separation from the phone and work has definitely gotten a lot better, because I've put other people in positions of power at like my clinic. So, when you're a business owner, it's like, if anything happens, they call you and you have to be available. But now I've, really it's just creating your life, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to be the person that everyone calls at 9 p.m. or 6 in the morning or whatever it is. So now I have a manager. Now I have, we just brought in a new CEO, and I want to have a lot of babies soon. So I'm going to be stepping out of that role. And yeah, you just have to build your life according to how you want to live and what's best, for you, if you can. But I worked, 15-hour days plus for the past decade to be able to be in a position like that. So I most certainly wasn't handed anything, even though I think sometimes people on the internet think because I'm in this, expensive type of industry, it's like, no, I worked for literally everything. And that's the other thing about life is, if you're willing to work for it, for the most part, unless you're really handed a very unfortunate set of circumstances, and my heart goes out to you, you can do whatever you want. It's amazing.
It's so beautifully said. And that goes back to like literally how we started this episode, was like the whole reason that you wanted to eat better and exercise and all these things is you're like, I want to be more productive. I want to be able, and like, that was the beginning of your career and how you were like needing the energy to be able to have these 15-hour days. And now, after you've done this for years and years and you've put all that energy in, you're in that position. So I don't want anyone to think that anything comes easy. You have to put the work in to be in the position that Kayla's in, to be able to do the things that you want to do and structure your life and live by your own definition of success. And so with all of that said, I just want to thank you for your time, Kayla. Where can everyone find you? Where can everyone work with you if they want to work with you on a more detailed level based on what you've, expanded upon in this beautiful hour that we've gotten to spend together?
Well, thank you. Well, I post free, content every single day on Instagram, and that's at Kayla Barnes. So also, I recently got married, and now my name is technically Kayla Lentz, but I've been Kayla Barnes on Instagram for so long, I'm trying to figure it out. But at Kayla Barnes, KaylaBarnes. My website is kaylabarnes.com. You can see, what I've been up to, my podcast. You can see my labs, my personal protocol. I recently launched this like female specific longevity optimization group that I'm so excited about, because my audience is primarily women. I would guess you probably have a good amount of women too. And so it has like all these courses based on like nutrition and exercise and sleep and biohacking and longevity. But it's also a place that women can ask each other questions and be more vulnerable, because I just know people didn't want to put out real questions on Instagram. So it's only $22 a month, and you can cancel anytime, but I really love that space as well. And that's really where I'm doing a monthly Ask Me Anything. So you can ask me questions and I answer them via Zoom. My clinic is Live Wellness. So lyv-wellness.com. Due to medical regulations, you can only see patients in the state that they're licensed. So I have practitioners licensed in Ohio, and I have practitioners licensed in California. We offer all the tests that we talked about today. And if you are interested, that's where you can find me. And my podcast is Longevity Optimization Podcast.
We will link the clinic. We will link the course or program and the podcast all in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, Kayla. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Wellness by Kelley, or head over to our website, wellnessbykelley.com. Sign up now for the Wellness by Kelley 7-day free trial on our app, or head over to our course. And now get 20% off the course or 10% off of the membership with the code Balancing Chaos, all one word, BALANCINGCHAOS. In our course, you'll get access to an emailed lab review plus protocols built out to help you heal with whatever hormonal imbalance you're struggling with. With our membership, you'll receive a library of content. With our app, with low-impact workouts, blood sugar balancing recipes, and mindfulness meditations, all designed to help you balance your hormones and help you feel like you are living your most beautiful, joyful, and vital life. If you like the show, please leave a rating and review. That is the best way to help the show grow and get to more listeners. We hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.